to tell you the story of how a craft beer store grew from 2 company locations to 42 franchise outlets in just 30 months and became a dominant player in their marketplace. Before working with us, our client was committed to growing organically. Their plan was to grow to add 8 more corporate stores for a total of 10 units over 10 years. After building their second store, they knew their goal was out of reach. The second store took 2.5 years to get off the ground. It took way too much time and required, frankly, too much capital. The second store also brought a whole new set of unexpected issues: more employees, inventory time, and the owners were being pulled between both stores. At that point, they knew that the only way they could effectively scale and grow their brand without selling off a stake of their company to investors was to franchise their business. When they came to us, we gave them a clear roadmap on how to franchise their business using our franchise growth formula. We developed the franchise model for them in approximately 6 months and started franchise sales shortly thereafter. Over 2.5 years, we sold 42 units for our clients. So you're probably wondering, why am I telling you this story? The reason is simple. We know what is needed to grow your franchise system in a big way. This video is for franchisors who want to scale in a really big way. Franchisors that have the desire to grow, but don't have the operational strategies or frankly the systems in place to manage growth. As a franchisor, let me ask you, do you ever feel like you're constantly fighting fires and herding cats? Do you worry about what's going to break if you grow too fast? Do you feel defeated and question your ability to lead your organization? Do you avoid talking to certain franchisees because, hey, you just know what's coming? And are you frustrated because your franchisees are ruining the successful brand, the brand that you built with your own blood, sweat, tears, and capital? If so, good news. You are really in the right place. Again, my name is John Batchelor, and I founded the Franchise Innovation Group to work with franchisors who want to grow their franchise systems but don't know how. Over the past 12 years, we've helped franchisors become market leaders in their industry by growing franchise systems and helping build empires that allow the franchisor to grow without losing control of the brand. We've worked with companies across the country in many industries, including the coffee space, restaurants of all types and shapes, retailers, vet clinics, delivery services, specialty markets, and even home care providers. We work with franchise systems who want to grow and expand. My background is in operations. I worked in corporate America for 20 years, and most of that time was spent turning around underperforming divisions of larger corporations. I know what it takes to develop successful organizations, and over the past 15 years, I have seen or experienced just about everything you can see in franchising. Lisa's background is in branding, advertising, and marketing as a director for a large hospital system. And now she provides strategic insight and direction to our clients and their franchisees. I don't want to bore you with our backgrounds. The bottom line is that our passion is to help clients build their franchise systems into empires. As I've said before, we have pretty much seen every challenge and everything that could go wrong. In franchising, we've seen it all. There's nothing that you can throw at me at this point that we can't solve. We've helped our clients overcome tremendous obstacles, and you'll see that in this video too. We know your pain because we are you. We own our own franchise system, and we understand firsthand the challenges of running a franchise system. So let me tell you about one of our clients and the dilemma they had concerning growth. The client started out with 2 company stores and big dreams of a nationwide craft beer empire. They had a great brand, good customer service, and a very loyal following. Their goal was ambitious. They wanted to open 10 corporate stores, 10 craft beer markets over a 10-year period. Despite their ambition and desire, growth was hard. As stated before, when we first met the owners, they had just opened a second store after 2.5 years. They were finding that their lack of operational standards and the significant capital requirements needed for organic growth was just going to keep them from meeting their goal of 10 stores over 10 years. This got them thinking about franchising. When they signed with us, we put our franchise growth formula into action, transforming their unique business into an easily repeatable business model primed for franchising. We did this by taking an A to Z approach. We built processes for every part of their business, from store operations to back office management. We developed a comprehensive and coordinated training and support system for franchisees. We developed a process to engage franchisees and enhance the ownership experience. And we developed a sales process to effectively recruit, educate, evaluate, and encourage prospects. Overall, we built our client a comprehensive franchise model based on clearly set expectations, a model that could grow and scale. When the trigger on franchising was pulled, our client had a comprehensive franchise model that was reflected in their FDD, a 7-volume operations manual, sales collaterals, a quick start program to help the franchisees get their locations open quickly, and a support program with a 4-phased educational curriculum as its cornerstone. Combining a robust franchise model with a solid offering and proper execution, their brand really caught fire and they grew rapidly. In 30 months, our team sold 42 locations for our client, despite the average initial investment cost per franchise location just north of $400,000. They were well on their way to becoming a dominant player in their marketplace. So how were we able to grow our clients' business using our franchise growth formula? How did we succeed in growing a costly retail franchise from 2 to 42 units in 2.5 years? Especially considering when most franchisors don't grow past a few units in their first few years. In short, how did we succeed where others have failed? The answer is twofold. We utilize a proven formula, our franchise growth formula. We recognize and understand the pitfalls of franchise system lifecycle. Secondly, through experience, we have found that franchisees have a life cycle similar to that of a product or fad. This graph represents what we call the franchise system life cycle, a life cycle that covers everything from franchise system launch to full-blown maturity. The franchise system life cycle includes 5 phases: launch, initial growth, growing beyond your local market into a regional growth and big way growth, and finally, maturity. Like any other life cycle, we know knowing where you stand today and where you should be tomorrow can be the difference between growth and getting caught in a trap. When we build a new brand or improve upon existing franchise systems, we look at the full life cycle of your franchise system, tailoring your system to avoid the pitfalls that can stall growth. So let's explore each of the 5 phases of franchise system growth. Along the way, we'll investigate where people often go wrong and how to avoid the pitfalls. The first phase is franchise launch. In this phase, this is the phase where you launch your franchise system. The launch of an effective franchise system is more than just going to market with some legal documents in tow. An effective franchise launch requires that you have to have first developed a franchise model or program to ensure the success of your franchisees. A good franchise model addresses the franchise program framework, which defines what is required of the franchisee and the franchisor. It's developing franchise operations processes and supporting operational materials. That is determining what and how you're going to train your franchisees. Answering the key question of how you'll train franchisees by creating a franchise training program. Defining your franchisee support processes. thinking through how you're going to support franchisees, and developing the legal documents, the FDD, and the documents that reflect your franchise program. Developing the sales process, determining how you're going to engage, encourage, and evaluate prospects. Once the franchise model or program has been developed, then and only then are you ready for the launch of your franchise system. The official launch typically covers activities such as emailing interested prospects, issuing press releases, initiating early ad campaigns, and holding your first discovery days. So, what possibly could go wrong in the franchise launch phase? You can go wrong by trying to do it yourself, what we call the DIY dud. Many franchise systems never get off the ground because they try to develop everything in-house, often with limited knowledge and resources. In a DIY dud, we commonly see the following. The franchisor doesn't have a launch plan. They don't have a coordinated strategy for the franchise system launch, relying solely on raving fans and word of mouth to grow their system. The franchisor doesn't have a franchise model or program. The franchisor has the legal documents, but they don't really describe a concrete franchise program. No one has taken the time to develop a plan for operations, training, and support of the franchisees. The FDD is incomplete, and the FDD focuses on price and cost rather than describing the way the franchisor will support franchisees. In some cases, we've seen the FDD is boilerplate, often taken from an online template that's frankly so generic that without the company's name, I wouldn't even know what the FDD was actually for, what business they were in. In these cases, I often find that the owners are really good business people with great concepts and a good or even great brand. What the franchise owner fails to recognize is that building a franchise system is not the same as scaling their existing business. It's about developing a whole new business. The franchise system owner is in the business based on operations, training, service, and support. So how do we address the franchise launch phase? More importantly, how do we help clients avoid the DIY dud? We utilize our franchise growth formula, as we've talked before, to develop a complete franchise model, one that addresses operational protocols, all the critical operational aspects of the franchise program, including training, operations manuals, policies and procedures, HR practices, everything that goes into running an individual franchise location. The legal documentation, a customized FDD and franchise agreement that describes your offering and the specific expectations both of the franchisor and the franchisee. Marketing, advertising, strategy, CRM, development of advertising and PR budget. All that goes into a marketing and advertising strategy that's key in terms of launch. Franchisor team education, educating the franchisor's team on the franchise model and how to effectively train franchisees on it. And branding, answering the key questions regarding a brand. What do you stand for? What's your brand promise? What's your overarching brand theme? And why, and this is most importantly, why are people going to follow you and your brand? This is how we deal with the DIY dud. So let's go ahead and move on to the second phase. The next phase in the life cycle of a franchise system is the initial growth phase. Initial growth is when a system is just beginning to grow and adding its first few franchises. In this phase, the franchisor has typically sold a few units to raving fans of the brand, fans who have become the core of your franchise system. So what can possibly go wrong in the initial growth phase? The initial growth phase can go wrong when you get stuck in place. The unvarnished truth is that many franchise systems never grow. They stall out at just a few units. When franchisors have added only 2 to 3 units in the first few years of business, they are stuck in place. The momentum is gone, and the franchise revenue system revenues rather, aren't enough to help them scale and grow. They are riding their bike round and around like a young kid round a cul-de-sac, never getting on the made road. As a franchisor, you commonly have more problems than people to address them, and frankly, the frustration and the exhaustion builds. We commonly see franchise systems get stuck because, number one, they're selling a dream. The dream may be compelling to a few, but the typical franchise buyer wants something tangible. They want to know that they can make money and that they will be supported by a franchisor. Secondly, the model is missing pieces. The franchise model is incomplete, missing many components such as operational processes, standard training curriculum, and basic system standards. And thirdly, the franchise revenues are lower than anticipated. Franchisees are struggling to generate revenues needed to cover expenses, often having to work for free. They're not building that nest egg that they either wanted or needed. So how do we help franchisors that are stuck in place? We review and re-examine the critical operational aspects of a franchise program, including training curriculum, operational materials, policies and procedures, and even HR practices. We train the trainers. We enhance the education and set standards for the frontline personnel, giving them the role, the clarity of role, and the tools needed to effectively solve problems and work out kinks. In franchise marketing, we evaluate the current marketing advertising efforts, and that typically results in the adoption of new vendors and even new technologies. A systematic approach to advertising, and with that comes an annual marketing calendar, a calendar that drives promotion. But the key is to have a marketing strategy, a blueprint. Franchise sales. We develop a franchise sales program designed to engage, entice, evaluate, encourage, and entertain prospects. Speed. We develop and introduce a custom quick start program designed to get the franchisee locations up and running quickly and smoothly, because everyone knows speed and momentum is truly one of the most important aspects of a franchise in the initial growth stage, franchise system. Well, let me tell you a story. We have a client that came to us several years before they ultimately engaged us. When they first came to us, they were just launching their franchise system, and they were in the process of building a new franchise system. They were in need of help. They had a unique service, a good brand, and smart people. They ultimately decided the cost to hire us, a consultant, was too high, and they would just do it themselves. They put together an FDD with an attorney and went to market. They signed 3 franchises in the first 3 years, one of which was owned by the franchise system owners. And they came to us because after almost 3 years of being in business, growth had stalled and they needed help regaining momentum. The first thing that we did was to review their franchise model, their program, which was lacking. We helped them develop a robust franchise model, which was then described in a thoroughly rewritten FDD. We developed a franchise sales program for use by their own salespeople and trained them on the new sales process, a process that now educated and qualified prospective buyers. We also developed a quick start program to overcome some of the hurdles they experienced in getting franchise outlets open quickly. We also refined some of their operation protocols, giving them the essentials of a formal franchise operation manual. Within 14 months after engaging us, their franchise system grew from 3 to 10 units. Today, they're poised for continued growth, and we continue to help them in refining their business processes. This is how we deal with a franchise system that's stuck in place. So now let's look at the next phase of growth. The third phase of franchise system growth, the third phase in the life cycle is regional growth. Typically in this phase, you have grown regionally and now you're a modest-sized organization. You're starting to cross state lines, but you're typically still within driving range of the original stores. The word is starting to spread about your brand, and your marketing advertising efforts are filling the pipeline with interested prospects. Regional growth is a great time in a franchise system lifecycle. So, what can go wrong in the regional growth phase? The regional growth phase can go wrong when the scale struggle sets in. That's a scale struggle. Growing a brand outside your home region is tough, doubly so when you're trying to manage a new franchise system. The struggle to grow in this phase is common among up and coming franchise systems, and frankly, it can halt the growth of a brand if it's not addressed. At this phase, really detailed attention has to be, you know, split between franchise sales and the support of existing franchise outlets. There has to be a shift. Royalty revenue has overtaken the franchise fee as your main source of income, and managing the franchise system oftentimes in this phase has become a Herculean task. When the sales struggle sets in, we often see the following. Royalty income is decent, but new franchisee sales are hard. Dealing with franchisees is a pain, it's annoying, and frankly, people within the organization ask themselves, at least, why do I want to add more pain to my life? Franchise closings or threat of closings have been something that's difficult to handle. And operations is finally getting into gear. You've turned the corner, but only by throwing people at problems. And that's not a way to go. Supporting units across the country is challenging as you get into regional growth, and it can be very expensive. You often hear people say at this point, it seems like we're always on the road, we're traveling all the time. You now at this stage, when the scale struggle sets in, have more people than problems. But you don't know how to manage or get the best out of your team. New franchise prospects expect everything to be buttoned up, and frankly, you're not sure if you're there yet. And you've saturated your local market and haven't gotten a clue how to break into your region. So, how do we help franchise systems overcome the scale struggle? Well, growing a franchise system outside your local market is frankly hard. It's really hard. You can no longer sit by and run on simple word of mouth advertising. To grow big, you need to think big. Becoming a dominant player in your region is going to take a major advertising push. Sales and advertising are key. At this stage, we evaluate all current marketing advertising efforts and often adopt new vendors and technologies. Prospects outside your local market almost never are as knowledgeable or invested in your brands as your raving fans. So you need a systematic approach in terms of advertising and a comprehensive marketing strategy, what we refer to as a blueprint that addresses both strategic and tactical issues. The blueprint addresses everything from your key messages to the annual marketing calendar that drives store promotion. Also, now that you have several units, your brand will need a clear financial earnings claim that supports your concept and its financial viability. Staffing is also important. And when we work with clients, we enact a staffing strategy. You're going to need to be active in the growth and development of your brand. And if you're stuck fighting fires with franchisees, your system just won't grow. To start regional growth, you're going to need a staffing plan, one that offers the support and services that serious buyers demand. Your business should be a team rather than a solo act, which requires the addition of new players. And you have to know when to bring those new players on and what those roles and responsibilities will be. All that is part of a staffing plan. And seek outside help. At this stage in the scale struggle, it's important to seek outside help, because in franchising, what you don't know can really hurt you. If you haven't gotten professional or counsel from a professional consulting or management firm at this point, well, now's probably the time to do so. And it's also key to let someone else manage the geography. We solve the scale struggle in terms of this by selecting very good, reliable site selection firms that can make or break any expansion strategy. Site selection firms are important for the growth of the brand. Consulting with a good regional or multi-regional site selection firm is definitely the way to go. And embracing technologies that allow you to scale, including digital operations manuals, online training curriculums, customer relationship management systems, build out project management, scheduling, and even videos. Training videos are really important for many, many brands. Your new staff, they need the new education, they need new tools, and they need set standards. They need clarity and tools to effectively solve problems and work out kinks. This is how we grow dominant brands in their local region. So let's look at the next phase, big way growth. The fourth phase of a franchise system lifecycle is big way growth. Typically in this phase, you've grown beyond just a regional footprint, and the brand is getting recognition across the country. You may even be thinking about expanding internationally. You have a bigger team, a larger revenue stream, greater brand recognition, and unfortunately, often more problems to deal with. For many franchise system owners, this is a time that they can cash out, selling company to a well-financed third party or in realizing their personal dreams. If this is the case, the struggle is over. And now as the former owner, you're called in to conduct keynote founder speeches at conferences rather than dealing with the day-to-day crisis. If this is you, congratulations, the struggle is over and you made it. But for those who did not sell out, the big way growth presents its own unique set of challenges. So what could possibly go wrong in the big way growth phase? The big way growth phase can go wrong when the franchisor forgets what brought them success and they frankly have just lost their way. In this phase, many franchisors tell me that they like the stability they feel with their larger system. Oftentimes they have 30, 40 or more units. They like the fact that revenues are stable, staff members are experienced, and franchisee relationships are more predictable. But for many, they also lament that, we've lost our way. And what does that mean? That means that the handshake deals and the unfulfilled promises at the 10 to 20 unit mark have become court cases at the 30 and 40 unit mark. The team is beginning to fight it internally. No one is really satisfied with the advertising strategy, and everyone thinks that the ad spend is slanted one way or the other. And the owner and the original team members are dispirited. It's often heard, hey, I gave you my best and now you're suing me? The franchisees have changed the brand. Often people tell me it's no longer about the mission and the original brand isn't even recognizable. The market has changed and systems haven't adapted to the challenge, and many franchisees' revenues are on the decline. So all these are conditions related to systems that have lost their way. So how do we help franchise systems that have lost their way? Well, we do it by helping franchise systems with things like franchise relations. We take a process approach to understanding franchisees, their needs, their desires, and their communication language. Understanding the franchisees' personalities is one of the greatest single challenges of a franchisor. Managing these key relationships cannot be done willy-nilly if you expect positive results. Brand position. It is vitally important to re-examine where the brand stands today. An honest assessment of the brand will show you what you now stand for and, frankly, how much you've strayed from the original brand. This is the time to redefine what it means to be part of the brand and reinvigorate the franchisees on your brand and brand positioning. Public relations is a key part of it. PR can be a powerful tool to drive brand culture and reinforce your differences. And this isn't about kissing puppies. This is about making bold statements on what you stand for, the problems you solve as a company, and why you are different. And as always, communications. Increasing communications is important. It's important to increase the communication opportunities between the franchisor and the franchisee, making sure that the franchisee has a voice, recognizes the fact that they do have a voice, and that the franchisor listens, listening to understand. And join industry associations. It's important to, to, to not just sign up, it's about looking strategically at those industry associations and how you should be involved, and what you should position yourself and how you should position yourself in those associations, even if you're a member already. This is how we help franchise systems who've lost their way. So let's look at the final phase of franchise system growth. The fifth phase of franchise system life cycle is maturity. A mature franchisor has typically experienced big growth followed by slowing sales and the inevitable closing of some outlets. The brand has gone big and joined strong local, regional, or even national presence. In this phase, many franchisors really like the stability. And they tell me, just like in the big way growth phase, that we like the stability of our system. So what possibly could go wrong in the maturity phase? The franchise maturity phase can go wrong when complacency sets in. Complacency can set in even in the best of franchise systems. People become comfortable with their routines in terms of business operations, and they no longer challenge why things are done or even if things should be done in a different way. And this inevitably leads to the compromising of standards. Standards become fluid, often defined by the individual franchise outlets, which leads to brand inconsistency and different customer experience across locations. It leads to a business model that doesn't or can't adapt. Complacency and complacent organizations, and even the best of business models, require reinvention over time. Most markets are constantly changing, and the inability to adapt can quickly make a brand irrelevant. The franchisor has to keep up with the trends in the market, closely monitoring the competition, listening to franchisees, and keeping their ears to the ground. Relationships, oftentimes they're taken for granted. It's very hard to keep up the relationship momentum as a franchise system grows. As a system becomes bigger, the franchisees become more removed from the original founder and their passion. The flame slowly dies and relationships can suffer as things become systematized. The irony here is that systems are what makes a franchisor successful. But systems without the personal touch are often impersonal and cold. It's hard to keep an open and positive line of communication with franchisees when they feel like a number rather than a name. And marketing presence declines. As a business grows, the marketing strategy it just doesn't keep up the pace. Marketing strategies don't evolve, and often new marketing channels are overlooked. Marketing budgets often wane as competing priorities dig into the advertising spend. So, how do we help franchise systems overcome the complacency challenge? We help franchise systems who have experienced complacency by starting off with a simple question: what should a franchise system and franchise look like? We closely examine your model to understand what a franchise unit should look and feel like, and then we assess your franchisee's ability to meet and maintain your standards. We dive into operations, asking questions: where you should be located, what should the storefronts look like, how should we greet guests, how should we maintain the store. These are all questions that are geared to arrive at a common standard of performance across all locations. We also look at opportunities for growth by looking at your competitors, other markets, and frankly speaking to your franchisees. The examination of new business lines, channels, and technologies is vital to ensure the adaptability of your brand without affecting your core values. And unlike earlier phases, relationship management at this point is probably not, but it definitely can't be a one-man show. We take a process approach to understanding franchisees, allowing you to delegate franchisee relationships to the larger franchise team. You should already have a team in place to manage franchisee relationships, and expanding the capabilities and reach of your franchise system is really important, that you understand what the role and relationship in terms of those your team should be. And the mature franchise system needs a comprehensive marketing strategy. I've said before, a blueprint that clearly, concisely defines your vision, values, and messages. It determines who will own and carry out the plan. It identifies the activities, the marketing channels and budget and timing of your different marketing and advertising activities. And a marketing strategy should define how the plan will be executed and monitored. Without a cohesive marketing strategy, without a blueprint, you really can't grow a mature franchise system. A great example of a mature brand is Hardee's. Hardee's was a company that had built a large following, had many franchises and sales that were diminished and on decline. And we know the story, we've heard it, and they strayed from their initial brand position by offering all types of products and services within their stores. Everything that you could put into your mouth, they made. The new CEO came into play, and the CEO reinvigorated the company and revamped the mature franchise by focusing the brand back to its roots. The company concentrated its efforts on making a great hamburger. Remember the Hardee's Thick Burger campaign? They went back to their roots, reestablishing their preeminence in the hamburger market. They were able to drive sales, increase franchisee satisfaction, and frankly, give themselves the funding they needed to revamp and modernize. This is the inflection point. When you're a mature franchise system, you need to either revamp, reestablish, and get back into the game, or head down the path to inevitable decline. So what's our secret sauce? We have a proven mechanism for developing new brands and improving existing franchise systems, a mechanism that we call the franchise growth formula. Our franchise growth formula has 4 steps. We evaluate the current state. We first examine your brand position, your technology platforms, your franchise model, key processes, and systems. We improve processes and systems. We focus our efforts on enhancing your key processes, documenting them for franchise owner use, developing coordinated training and support systems, and enhancing the sales process. And once those new systems have been developed, we work to integrate them into your new or existing business. And lastly, we develop a set of measures, a set of KPIs to review systems used to help track and manage franchisee operations. Our formula provides a concrete way for you to get to that next stage of franchise growth, avoiding the life cycle pitfalls we just discussed, fast and efficiently. As a company, we are equally focused on operations and sales. We never skimp or cut corners, and we always focus on results. If you have come this far in this video, then you're either really bored or you sincerely want to overcome the challenges that have risen in your stage of the franchise system lifecycle. You clearly see that there is an opportunity for your company to improve and grow, but you're probably wondering whether or not taking that next step to improve is really worth it. Let's be real, you know where you stand today, and while you may not be happy with your position, you know it. Stepping forward to improve your lot, to improve and grow your business is like stepping out into the unknown. I get it, and this is a perfectly natural feeling. Everyone fears the unknown. But know this, there is a definite cost of inaction, and it is typically steep and often hidden. So what happens if you don't do anything and all the information that you heard today goes in one ear and out the other? Frankly, that's probably what most people are going to do. And let me tell you the problem with inaction. I can promise you in advance, you're probably not going to like it. No decision is a decision. In deciding not to take action to improve and grow your franchise system, you are giving up on the potential of your franchise system. Doing nothing has a cost, and often it's a steep one. You lose out on the ability to grow the franchise system, increase revenue. You lose momentum, which is, it can be a death knell in franchising. You risk the growing dissatisfaction of franchise owners who feel that they're not getting the love they need, especially considering they're sending you a royalty check every week or every month. You risk descending into the quagmire of poor validation, a scenario where your existing franchisors do not say good things about the franchisor to new prospects, effectively killing the deal before it ever really starts. And the burnout of staff, it becomes a real issue. People can only go so long fighting the same old fires without ever getting to the source of the flames and dancing around the real issues, never investing the time, energy, or effort to arrive at real solutions. It doesn't just lead to aggravation, it also costs time and money. This is time and money that could be channeled into new initiatives to grow and improve the business. When the love of the brand is lost, so is the allegiance to the brand. The unthinkable situation becomes a reality where your former friends and compatriots become enemies. Your raving fans sitting on the other side of an arbitration table where the stakes are often make or break. It's simple. System growth yields increased revenue. The lack of growth is a lost opportunity for revenue creation. Our client that grew from 0 to 42 units in 2.5 years, well, they could have stalled any time during any of the stages of that initial franchise system life cycle. But they stayed the course and allowed us to help them grow and thrive. The kicker, for full disclosure, is that after 2.5 years, they decided to go it on their own. They made some poor decisions and growth stalled. They added approximately 9, 10 units of the next 3.5 years while seeing existing units close due to the lack of innovation and the ability to adapt to changes in the marketplace. So let's look at a simple example of the cost of inaction, the cost of not improving and growing your franchise system. This example looks at the cost of inaction in terms of the lost potential in terms of royalty revenues only, using our simple franchise system capacity formula. For the sake of argument, let's say that you generate an average of $25,000 in annual royalty revenue for a franchisee. This amount, $25,000, then reflects the total amount of royalty a given franchisee pays the franchisor in a single year. It's what they're worth financially to the franchisor. I have to say that this amount is pretty conservative and much lower than the average of most of our clients. So if the average royalty revenue per franchisee is $25,000 and the franchisor adds additional units, what happens? If they're able to add 5 new units, then in the first full year, they would increase franchise system overall revenues by $125,000. Add 10 units and that number climbs to $250,000. Add 25 units and that number goes to $625,000. If you're adding 40 units, which is pretty aggressive, but let's say 40 new units, that increases by $1 million. Well, 40 units in 1 year is a big stretch. You can see what happens if you add units. It's simple. Annual franchise system revenues go up. So the cost of inaction for a franchisor is real, and these lost opportunity costs only compound over time. So let's look at another hidden cost of inaction, one that directly affects franchise system owners. This example looks at the cost of inaction in terms of the valuation of a franchise system, what you stand to gain when you sell. Let me tell you, there are franchise systems sell every day. There are institutional investors, including big names such as Morgan Stanley, Bain Capital, and Rourke Capital Group, that invest literally billions into buying franchise brands. These firms commonly buy big brands and make them bigger, and they even buy smaller brands. They buy smaller brands, invest capital in the smaller brand, and build it up and sell it to a conglomerate or restaurant group. In the industry, the price of a franchise system can be based on a variety of factors, but the valuation typically comes down to a multiple of annual royalty revenue. The average multiple applied to a mature franchise system can be anywhere from 6 to 13 times annual royalty revenue. Most valuations don't even take into account franchise fee revenues, since these revenues, the upfront fee, are typically eaten up, and they consider them to be eaten up by the cost of new franchisee recruitment and training. By the way, the industry has really become very adept in ensuring that valuations are based on good franchise models. The financial houses can quickly assess whether or not the franchisees are being supported. They can quickly discern between the systems that concentrate on selling franchises versus those focused on selling franchises and supporting franchisees. So let's look at example. For the sake of argument, let's be conservative and say the value of a mature franchise system is 6 times annual royalty revenue. Let's also say that you have 40 units and your annual royalty revenue is $1 million. That is, you take in $1 million from royalties from your franchisees each year. In this case, your potential buyout is anywhere between 6 million with a high potential of 13 million. The moral is clear. If you don't grow your franchise system and increase royalty revenue, then you don't increase the value of your business. The true irony is that by doing nothing, your revenue potential decreases substantially, and your actual revenues, what you're bringing today, will probably even decline over time. The question you have to ask yourself is simple. Is my decision not to act worth the cost? The cost to grow and improve a franchise system often pales in comparison with the cost of doing nothing. If you know that you've got a great product or service franchise and you want to take it to that next level, grow more units, or even if you just want to position your company for a buyout, but you don't know how to get there, then let's hop on a call. We do this every day. We're always talking to franchisors who frankly don't know what they don't know, but they do know they want to grow just like you. So let's hop on a call and get you started on a roadmap for growth using our franchise growth formula. We'll give you an action plan on how to grow your franchise system. Thank you.